Good morning, Internet. It's 8:31 in the morning. I'm here in Clinton, Oklahoma. This is where I was born. We moved to Oklahoma City when I was 5. Starting in about junior high, I came out here almost every summer for 4 or 5 years. I worked on our farm and my grandfather's farm. He was a wheat farmer and had some cattle. I plowed a mini field, worked in the harvest, driving a combine, and taking off from our pasture and flying around in our Cessna 120 airplane. Well, here's the co-op. During harvest, we'd bring our truckloads of wheat in and weigh in here on the scales. Take our truck down here to the end and dump it in there. Then we'd go back and weigh it again, and we'd get a ticket on how much we brought in. Also, every once in a while, we'd bring our pickup full of 50-gallon barrels and fill them up with tractor gas, and we didn't have to pay for city road tax here. I'd go in there and get an orange pop. Boy, it tasted good. One orange pop every few weeks. It was great. Well, I'm pulling up to the farm we had. Route 66 runs right along there. And this used to be our Stuckey store before we sold it in the 90s. And our land was right behind there. Said Stuckey's up there. I bought my first little scooter from the owner's son that lived there, a little Cushman scooter. This is Route 66 here. That was all our land there. We had probably a section altogether. This cemetery here is Parkersburg Cemetery, and I don't have any relatives there, but there was a schoolhouse here, and my grandfather went to school at this school that was here, and then eventually they moved the schoolhouse over to where my grandfather lived, and he used it for part of his house. I've plowed that field many a times. Here's our farm that my ancestors homesteaded in about 1900 and worked on in the summertime in my junior high years. We sold it in the 90s. The layout is about the same, but the barns, sheds, and house have all been replaced. Pond is in the same spot, and on the right, the pasture, that was our landing strip. We had a Cessna 120 tail dragger. We'd go flying every once in a while to check on the cattle, the fields, and sometimes chase coyotes. We'd pull it out of the hangar and start it with a prop. It did have a starter, but we didn't want to put a battery in it because it weighed too much. With one person in the cab, would say, "Magneto off," and brakes on. And we'd spin the prop a couple of times, and then we'd say contact, which meant the magneto was on. You spun the prop and it started. We'd open the gate, get in, and taxi out to the field. We'd line up on the landing strip and take off. Here at the end of the landing strip, you can see one of our barns, and in the background you can see where our Stuckey store was. These power lines had those big red balls on it that a lot of airports had at the time. If the wind was blowing from the south, we'd take off and land towards the south. We did have to dodge the cow patties. After we landed, we would taxi it through the gate and down the driveway back to the hangar. Well, here I'm at Clinton Cemetery. My grandfather and my mother and a number of relatives are here. I'm putting these roads on Google Street View. I've been posting there for the last year or so. I have most of the trails, bicycle trails around the city. I also post photo spheres, which are 360-degree photos from my drone on over these cemeteries, and I've done most of the golf greens around Oklahoma City and the lake shores around most of the lakes around the city. I get about 10,000 views a day on those routes, and I have over 4 million views altogether. I have the camera on my helmet right now doing a 360-degree video, and when I get through I'll post it on Google Street View. My trails, my bicycle trails, are probably my most popular ones because Google cars only drive on streets. They don't do trails or cemeteries. And our farm is just over the hill there. My mother's grave is right there, and grandfather. This is the Harold Mennonite Church. My great-great-grandfather went to this church, and he homesteaded the property here, and his father had another homestead right down the road too. I have a picture of them and the whole family there in front of the church. Their grave is out over there. Thirsty? I need a Route 66 soda. That's good.